In the last session, we discussed about user types, right? We discussed about implementation user and employee user, implementation user, the employee user, and we discussed about functional setup manager. In today's session, we'll see how to create the user. When I talk about user, in the fresh instance, we can create implementation user. The implementation user you can create from security console. Okay, from security console only we can create the implementation user. If you want to access to security console, we need a role called as IT security manager. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one user called as ERP3, which I created already. So when you are going to practice on the same instance, I'll be sharing one user. With that user, you can log into the instance and you can create your own user. With that user, you can proceed with your practice. Okay. The user which I am going to provide for you for your practice, don't use for any practice purpose. Use that user just to create the user only. By logging to that instance with that user, create your own user, and what are the setups you are going to do, everything do from that user only. Okay, now I'm going to log into the user called as ERP tree. The ERP tree user has access to these three roles. Okay, these three roles. From that user will create new user. Fine. So this is the cloud instance we have. Now we'll log into this instance. For your practice, I'll be sharing the different user. Just log in. If you want to create the user, first we have to go to security console. Okay, we have to go to security console. From security console, you can create the user. So,
Lakshman, one question.
please.
For the implementation projects, right now you are using ERP3 user. For the new implementation project, how the initial user will be used?
Yeah. When you are going to work for any client, along with instance, Oracle will provide one username. They'll create and they'll provide for the client. That is a user you can use. Okay.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here for your practice, I'll be creating one user and I'll be sharing. That's it. Yeah. Fine. So to create the user, once you log into the instance, okay, there are many points which you have to understand, but not now. We'll focus one by one. Now our target is user creation. Let's focus on that. So once you log into the user, which user? Which user has access to IT security manager role? The ERP3 user has access to IT security manager. Now you can go to navigator. So within this navigator, okay, here in the left side on the top corner, you could see the bar icon, that is navigator icon. Okay, from there you can navigate to any task. Click on that navigator icon. So here you could see many areas. Okay, many areas. Out of this, you have to go to the section called as tools. Okay, we are going to create the implementation user. Click on tools. That section would be expanded. Under tool section, we have many tasks. These all you can consider as a different tasks. These all are tasks. Now, out of all these, you have to select the task called as security console. Okay, just click on security console task. So how we are navigating? First log into the instance, click on navigator and expand tools. Under tools, you can find the security console. If you don't see the security console here, that means this user doesn't have access to IT security manager. Okay, if the user has access to IT security manager, then only you can see the security console task under tools. Click on security console. Okay, the message is related to roles. When we are dealing with the roles, we'll discuss about it. Now it's not required. You can close. The left side, you can see the section called as users. Select users. Okay, select users. To create the new user, click on add user account. Click on add user account. And it's a very basic definition already we discussed. To create the implementation user, we don't require any business unit or legal entity. It's a very simple definition. The first name field is optional. Provide last name. So we can give the name as ERP. Let's say we can go with the name called as, already we used ERP3, Cloud ERP, etc. Say Cloud INC. Okay, I'm creating the user called as Cloud INC. I given the last name also as a Cloud INC. Reality, you can provide the person name as a last name and first name and all. The same name system is defaulting Cloud INC, and you can set the password. Confirm the same. That's it. So this is how you can create the user. If you want to assign the roles to this user, here we have a tab called as add role. By using this add role, we can assign what are the roles we want to assign to this user. So as we discussed, these are the three primary roles for any user to give the access to all these areas to work as a consultant. Okay, to work as an implementation consultant, any user require access to minimum these roles. So we are creating the implementation user, but we are trying to assign the role called as employee role. Okay, employee role, which is abstract role, already we discussed. If the user is implementation user, how that user can act as an employee? Implementation user by default cannot act as an employee. So when user is not able to act as an employee, the employee doesn't require access to employee self-service. If the user is going to be converted as employee, then the employee role may be required so that the user can have access to employee self-service access. But here, why we are assigning this employee role to this user is, any user is to run the reports or to run certain jobs, processes. So when you are working on this configuration, so there is a need of submitting certain programs. That is the reason we are assigning the employee role to this user. Otherwise, we no need to assign employee role to this user, since this user is going to be implementation user. If user is employee user, we have to assign the employee role, but now user is not an employee user. Employee user is going to be implementation user. Still we are assigning to get access to ESS job page so that we'll be able to submit any sort of programs. So that is the primary purpose why we are assigning this employee role to our user. Fine. We'll go and assign these three roles to our user. So click on add role. The first role, application implementation consultant. Just you have to search and find the roles. Application implementation consultant. So here you could say application implementation administrator, application implementation consultant, application implementation manager. And the same application implementation consultant application implementation administrator role. Role is same. You can notice two different codes. Role name is same, but the same role has two definitions with the different role codes. The first role is starting with ASM. The second role is starting with ORA ASM. That means this role has additional prefix called as ORA. If you compare these two roles related codes, one role prefix is ORA, remaining two other roles starts with ASM, but here additionally you can see prefix as ORA. So for few roles only Oracle is providing the two definitions. There is a reason also. If you go to this role, Oracle won't allow you to modify. These two are seeded roles. These two are seeded roles. For few roles only they are giving the two copies, two definitions. But if you go with any role called role which is starting with ORA, it can be any role. Within the role code, if you see ORA, that role cannot be modified. The first role also seeded role, but even it is seeded role, since the role code is not starting with ORA, that can be modified. Reality, we should not do any modifications to seeded roles. That's what Oracle is recommending. Even Oracle is recommending not to modify the roles. They are giving the option to modify. You can go to any seeded role and you can edit. Since they given the flexibility, they are giving the two copies for each and every role. Out of that, the role code which starts with ORA that cannot be modified, but the other role which we have with the same name can be modified. Here, any question, please?
So when do we use the ASM role?
Yeah, I'll come to that
So
point.
we have.
Yes, yes. Ideally, you can use any one of the role, but in terms of modifications, only the point is you have to understand which starts with the ORA that cannot be modified. This can be modified. Reality, what happens is these two roles will have similar access, similar privileges. You can assign the role to user which starts with ASM or which starts with ORA. That user can have access to the same functionality. There is no difference. Okay, there is no difference.
Can we copy that?
Yes.
Can we copy that
Yes,
ORA role?
yes. Any role you
Okay,
can
now I see it.
copy.
Okay.
Any role you can copy, but when it comes to direct modification, you cannot do to ORA. You can,
Okay, got it. Thank you.
yeah, you can copy the ASM prefix role or ORA. Any role you can copy, but directly by connecting to this ORA prefix role, you cannot modify. This directly also you can modify, or else any role you can copy and you can play with that. Okay, that is the point. Here you can see few sample roles which are copied. See somebody, since this is a vision instance, somebody copied the role. The application implementation administrator role, somebody copied. Which role they copied? The role which, the role code which is starting with ASM that somebody copied. If you want to copy this role, yes, you can copy. Any role you can copy and you can modify as per your requirement. You can just remove certain functionality or else you can add some functionality. That's how you can play with any role. But now the point is, here you could see different roles: application implementation administrator, application implementation consultant, application implementation manager. When you are going to work as a consultant, we have to assign the role called as application implementation consultant to our user. Reason is, the application implementation consultant role has all the privileges to do any sort of configuration. If you assign application implementation administrator, you may see the name as administrator, but reality that role doesn't have all the privileges when you compare with consultant role. Consultant role only has more privileges than administrator roles or manager roles or anything else. So that is the reason we have to use the role called as consultant role only. Okay, consultant role only. This is the point we have to understand. So again, next question is which role we have to assign. There is no big difference. You can assign any role to user among these two. Okay, so codes are different. You can assign the role application implementation consultant where the code is starting with the ASM or ORA. Anything you can assign. Now I am proceeding with the first one. When you are practicing, you can select the same or second one. Doesn't make any difference. And the first point, one point we discussed, that is why they are giving these two roles with the same name with a slight code difference to restrict, not to do the modification, direct modifications on this role, and this role is allowed to do the modification. But reality, when you are working on the project, if you want to create the similar role, we copy and we create however we require. We never go and do the direct modifications on seeded roles. Okay, this is a point we have to understand. I'm selecting the first one. You can select any one of these. I'm selecting the first one. Just select. The same system is displaying. Same application implementation consultant. Code is ASM. The application implementation consultant code is ORE ASM. So you can select any one of them. Select. After selecting, you have to click on this. Once you click on that, system would select the record, nothing but role. Then you can click on add role membership, nothing but we are assigning the role to user. Click on that. You'll get a confirmation message. The role called application implementation consultant was added to the user. Say OK. The background you can see the same. Here role you can see as added. Okay. The next role, IT security manager. Here also same case. IT security manager role name is same, but the codes are different, which makes the difference with the prefix only. The FND IT security manager, here before FND we have prefix called as ORE. Now you know very well which one we have to choose, any one. And along with these two seeded roles, these two are seeded roles, somebody copied the role and they just give a note as don't use. They might have just removed certain functionality which privileges by default the IT security manager has, or else some additional privileges they might have added. So that is the reason just they noted. They created two copy roles. One is against FND, this one, and other one, this one they created against this ORA prefix code. Okay, two roles they created, two copy roles they created against these two seeded roles. Okay, this is a point we have to understand. Whatever the copied role, we no need to touch. Since this is Vision instance, you can see here when you are dealing with the fresh instance, with the client instance, you don't see any copied roles until unless we do that role copy. I mean, where we go and copy the roles and we create. If you don't create, you don't see. Okay, since it's a vision, we are able to see the copied roles. Those you can ignore when you are practicing in this instance. Think these are the two roles. So anyone you can select. So I'm selecting the first one, IT security manager, where role code is FND IT security manager. So when you talk about EBS, in EBS, when you are going to select the menu for our responsibility, the menu you can find as a code only, right? Menu you can find as a code. So here, most of the roles you have a direct names, and with every role name code is associated. There are certain roles, by seeing the role name you cannot understand the role is belongs to which application. You cannot understand the role is belongs to which application, but by looking at the code you can understand that the role is belongs to which application. Okay, the role is belongs to which application. So that's how you will come to know. Okay, we'll see those scenarios also, but the simple point is code always address the application also. Okay, the code addresses the application the role is belongs to. That's it. So select this role, click on add role membership.
Which is the standard one, Lakshman?
Both are seeded. Okay,
Okay.
both they are.
Then why do we need
Tell me.
both? Because in Oracle we only typically have one, right? In Oracle EBS.
I'm not sure, you might have joined bit late. I explained also what is the difference between those two. Okay, so role is one, but they are giving the two definitions where they are making the difference with the code. For one role they are giving prefix as ORA, for other role no. The role within which role you see prefix as ORA, that role you cannot directly modify. You cannot edit that role. The other role what Oracle is giving, you can edit. Or any role you can copy and you can modify. But direct modifications are not possible on the role code which starts with ORA. Other role is allowed to do it allows us to do the modifications, even those are, that is seeded role. That's it. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for all the roles they give 2 in cloud, all roles will have
All roles they are not giving. For few roles, the condition is they are excluded. We'll see that for which roles not applicable. We'll come to know. But the point is, whenever you see two definitions for single role, this is the point you have to understand. Okay, so this is the point we have to understand to find out the difference between those two definitions for the same role. That's all. Done. Now the next role is employee role, right? Employee. For employee also same rule is applicable. For that role they are giving the two records, two definitions where the role code is different, and there is one copied role also. Somebody just might have copied the employee role. That's what you could see here. Okay, so but the seeded roles are these two records. Role is one, but records are two. Now you can prefer any one of the role to assign to your user. Any one you can select. There is no difference. Same privileges you could see. Only the difference already we discussed. This you cannot edit directly. This you can edit. That's it. Anyone you can assign. Select. Click on search. The same you could see. Here you could see ORA per person. That means it's referring HCM application. Okay, person table, the employee abstract role. Here they are giving the role type also the abstract. Sorry, the page got refreshed. Click on add role. Go to employee. Search for employee role. Selecting the first one, it will list out available role definitions with the same name. You can select first one or second one, anyone. Both will have a same equivalent privileges. Select first one, say add role membership. Say OK. So in the background you could see we assigned the three roles: application implementation consultant, IT security manager, and employee. Okay, then say done. Just click on done. We'll discuss what does it mean by add auto provision roles. Okay, we'll test the same, but to understand the purpose of the tab or functionality is, now we are assigning the roles to this user through manual process. Instead of assigning the through manual process, you can assign the roles to the users automatically based on certain rules. Say if the user belongs to finance department, which role system has to assign automatically. If the user belongs to so and so business unit, which roles system has to assign automatically. If the user is employee user, which roles? If the user is contingent worker, which role system has to assign? If the user has a supervisor called as so and so person, which roles need to be assigned? These sort of conditions we can create, and whenever you create the user, system would assign those roles based on those conditions. Okay, we'll test that functionality also. So that rules we have to create from HCM. Even if you are not going to implement HCM applications for our client, still you will be able to create that rules where you can automate the role assignments to your users based on certain conditions or say rules. Fine, done. Now we created user. Just say we created user and we assign the roles. Fine. Seems to this user already exist. Okay, I'll name it as ERP3 user. Click on save and close.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Hi, Lakshman Sagar here. Sorry, I got linked later. How much time it has been? The class has started.
Okay, okay. I think 10 minutes.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah,
I will cover it through recordings. No
yeah, yeah,
problem.
please. Yeah,
You can continue.
sure. Thank you. Fine. So we created user. Okay, so we created user and we assigned these three roles. Already we discussed what is the purpose of these three roles. The application implementation consultant role will give us access to FSM, right? If you assign the role called as application implementation consultant to any user, that user can connect to FSM, functional setup manager. And if any user has access to FSM, the user can perform any application related setups. And IT security manager role will provision the access to security console so that that user can create the users and that user can manage the users and roles can be assigned. Now we have access to security console. That is the reason we created user, we assigned the roles. And if at all we want to create the custom roles, yes, we can create. Everything is possible from security console. The employee role will give the access to employee self-service pages or for say relevant pages, or you can call as privileges, and moreover you can run the reports also. Okay, this is the point we have to understand about this role. Now whatever the user we created, we'll go and find it. Okay, we selected users tab. Now you can search for the user called as ERP3 INC, right? This is the name we given. So this user we created. If you want to change the password for this user, what you can do is go to actions, click on this drop down. You can click on reset password so that you can change the password. And it is possible you can delete the user also. So you can just click on delete and you will be able to delete the user. And if you don't want to allow the user to log into the instance, you can log the account. Okay, once you log the account, user cannot log into the instance. Later point of time you can unlog, then you can allow that user to log into the instance. Okay, these actions are possible with employee with a user definition, user record. Okay, against this user record, you can delete the record or you can reset the password for the user, or else you can log this user account. And here you can notice, by looking at the user record, you can understand that the user is implementation user or employee user. Here implementation user means you have to understand the user which is created from security console. The moreover, that additional point is, you know, which user can do the implementation. That user you have to treat as a implementation user. So that is nothing but to which user we are assigning these roles. That user you can treat as implementation user in terms of privileges. If you assign these three roles to employee user also can act as a implementation user. But only the point is from where we are creating, based on that we can call as implementation user and employee user. And irrespective of from where we are creating, based on the roles whatever we are assigning to that user, you can treat that user as implementation user. You may have employee user called as XYZ as we discussed in the last session, but if you are going to assign the same roles to that user also can act as implementation user. But the user is not created from security console still. The user has privileges to do any sort of configuration since the user got access to these roles. In that context, you can call the employee user also as implementation user, okay, who has privileges. But in terms of definition, by default, the user which we are creating from security console, that user we call as implementation user. Try to understand, when you say implementation user, don't think all the time the user created from security console only implementation user. Even your employee user, if you're for your employee user, if you are going to assign these three roles, yes, that user also can act as an implementation user. You will have all the privileges to do implementation, means system configuration. So these are the 2 points which we have to understand. Now this
But
user,
Lakshman, vice versa is also applicable, right?
sorry,
Vice versa is also applicable, right? If you create a user from security console,
that user can be a only implementation user, okay, by assigning the roles, or
no,
else that user can be converted as a implementation user as well as then he will become implemented. So the user can be converted as an employee user as well as he can act as a implementation user.
no. If I want to create a normal user, not an employee user,
Yeah, this is a process.
no, only through HCML we can do it from security console as well, right? You have that option user and you are creating user, right? What would be the difference
Yeah.
creating from security console
Okay, if you know
versus?
the task, okay, if you know the task, what you are referring, okay, that we didn't discuss in the classes, but let me answer to your question. That only we call as employee user creation. Okay, whatever you are referring, that only we call as employee user creation.
Okay.
Yeah, done. Fine. So we created a user. Now by looking at this user, you can understand this user is just implementation user. That means the user which is created from security console, or else this user is employee user. You can understand by seeing. So if you look at the employee record, if you find person name, person ID, and business unit within this record, that user you have to understand as employee user. Maybe you might have created that user as an employee user directly, or else there may be case where you created that user as a implementation user from security console. Later you might have converted as an employee user. Ultimately, if you see against the user, business unit and person ID, you have to understand the current state of the user is employee user. That's it. So now here we don't see any information related to business unit and person ID. I'll show you other user which is employee user. Have another user called as Cloud INC. Okay, I think if you open that, and here also by looking at this record also you can understand. So Cloud INC user, you can see email ID. If you see email ID directly from this record, you can understand this user is employee user. To get confirmation on that, you can open that user, click on the user, you can see business unit is associated with that user. There is a person ID also, or say person number. If you see person number and business unit or the email ID, that means the record is employee user record. Initially the user may be just implementation user. Later that the user might have converted as a employee user. It can be any case. You may create direct employee user, or you may create implementation user. That implementation user you can convert as an employee user. Okay, anything you can do. Fine, this is the point we have to understand. So any questions here, please?
Lakshman, how about a single sign-on connectivity with this user creation?
Okay. Yeah, that is possible. Okay, that is possible. That option also they given here. You can use SSO. You can implement it, but you have to keep in touch with Oracle when you are going to do that. You have to raise SR, and they will be helping to complete that task. Okay. If you need more
Okay,
information on
one
that,
add.
I'll talk about it. Okay, in specific session I'll talk on that. But now the focus is user creation. Okay, if you want to understand SSO, yes, we'll talk on that. As a functional consultant, what we have.
So,
Yeah, please.
most of the times the users are employee users, and how is it in normal circumstances the users are employee users only, right?
See, when you look at that real usage of system, almost all users are employee users only. Who are working in that company as an employee, they may have to work on the system. In that case, which employee is going to work on the system? For them, they'll create the user along with the employee record. That user only we call as employee user. So almost all the users are employee users only within the real system. But already we discussed why we have to create user from security console. We discussed. When you start with a fresh implementation, we cannot create employee user directly. Reason? We need business unit and legal entity. So that is reason first we have to create implementation user. Later you can create, please go on mute. Okay. So in the very initial stage, when you start with the implementation or when you start using that instance, when you start configuring the instance, you don't find any definitions of business unit and legal entity. That is the reason to start with the system configuration, we have to create implementation user. Later you can, once you are ready with the business unit and legal entity, implementation user you can convert as a employee user, or else altogether you can create new employee user. Once you do the implementation, you'll be creating the many users, or else you can load the users from the spreadsheet also, the employee users, as per the client the requirement, like how many business users will be accessing this instance. So based on that information, you can create or you can load. I'll show you how to load also that spreadsheet and all. I'll take you through. But when you create, if you want to create the user from security console, these are the points we have to understand. By looking at this record, you can understand here there is no email ID. So they applied very recently one patch. Before that, I could say in the last month also, you can see business unit, okay, and person ID within this summarized record only. Here only directly you could see. Now just in the as a summarized record, they are not showing. You have to click on that record, then they are displaying. Even if you click on this user, you don't see any BU and that person ID, etc. Because this user is purely implementation user. We didn't convert as an employee user. So that is a point we have to understand. Okay. Now, if you want to reset the password for this user, yes, you can do that. Go to actions. So reset password. So manually change the password. And here you can provide the password. You can confirm the same. When you create the employee user, you can provide the email ID. If you provide the email ID, so with that you will be able to reset the password also. Okay, when you click on the reset password link for specific user, it will send the link to that mail ID so that you will be able to reset the password. So that's how you can get the update. When you create employee user definition, we'll talk on that. That is not applicable for implementation user. Okay, so if you want to add additional roles to this user, just click on the username, click on edit, click on add role. This is how you can assign the roles. So already we discussed, we have a roles two types. It's a very broad classification. Already we discussed the actual roles classification as a job roles, duty roles, abstract roles, and data roles. But in the very broad level, in terms of usage of roles, we can understand we have few roles where we don't assign anything. The reason we don't record any transactions with the help of those roles. The best example, these three roles. To application implementation consultant, employee, and IT manager, we are not going to assign any business unit or primary ledger or inventory organization or corporate book or anything else. Okay, only we assign these business units, primary ledger to the roles which are specific to particular application where we can perform the business transaction. Okay, those are module specific roles, application specific roles. These are kind of generic roles which are required to do the implementation or to have access to certain area where we do the some sort of administration part or configuration only without any transactions. Fine. Now we'll just sign out from the current user. We'll log into the instance with this user, and since we assigned these three roles, we'll go and verify the current user. Which user? Current user is which we created, INC. ERP3 INC. This is the user we created just now. From this ERP3 INC, we are able to access to FSM, security console, and employee self-services or not. We'll go and verify. Just we'll cross check. Fine. So if you want to sign out, you can click on the username, or next to username you have a down arrow mark. You can click on that. Click on sign out. Say confirm. The logout you can confirm. Now we can log into the instance as a ERP3 INC user. Provide password. Yeah, please.
While assigning the roles, right?
Yes.
As compared to responsibility, right? In this EBS actually,
Yes.
we have an end date concept there actually.
Yes.
Here I didn't find any dates here.
No dates. You can delete.
So
you can delete, but in case of EBS, you cannot delete the responsibility once you assign. That is the reason they given the end date. Okay. EBS, we cannot delete it. That's how we have. Just sign it.
Oh.
Oh, 1 second.
Once we log out, we need to confirm. Is it like if we won't confirm our session per
Session, otherwise it would be connected with that session only. That's what. But you cannot do anything. Okay, there will be one connectivity with the actual server from this user. That's all. By keeping in that mode, we cannot do anything.
I can log in with,
you cannot do anything.
but I can create one more session.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. The same system also you can create one more session, but you have to use the different browser. Even in the same browser also, yes, you can go to one more tab and you can do that. That is possible.
Okay.
I'll just go and reset the password.
Lakshman,
Mismatched.
I can open a multiple session with a single user, right?
You can
open a multiple sessions with the same user. Is it possible that way?
Multiple sessions with the same user. Yes, in the same browser you can do it. The same browser, I can open 5 different tabs. In 5 different tabs with the same user, I can access to 5 different pages. I can perform any task in those different pages. Yes, we can do that. See, now I connected to the security console. The same URL I'm going to copy and paste here. This is the actual URL which you have to consider for our instance. Enter. Okay, same instance, same user. Now in this tab I am in the security console. Here I can be in the page or somewhere else. Here I'm in the home page.
But if single,
Yeah.
is it possible?
Sorry?
Oh, if single sign-on is enabled for that particular user, so it will be possible for that user also, right?
Yes, that is allowed. Yeah. That is by default. Okay.
Okay.
Respect of that. Yeah. Possible.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, let me reset the password for our user which we created. Seems to it is not working. So go to reset password. Reset. Done. Now we can sign out from this user and we can log into the instance with our new user. Okay, with a new user called as so their display name we given as Cloud INC. Reality the login name is ERP INC. Earlier we tried with that last name as Cloud INC. Last name it is displaying as the display name. Actually user is ERP tree INC. Just now we use the same credentials. Okay. Now we'll verify from this user whether we can connect to security console or not. So you go to tools. Here we are able to access to security console. The reason we assign IT security manager. Okay, if you want to create new users and if you want to manage the existing user accounts, yes, you can do all. Click on username, this display name, click on edit. Our username is this, but last name we given as Cloud INC. Update to ERP3 INC. So save and close. Fine. That is the first point we verified. This user has access to security console because of IT security manager. I will go and verify this same user has access to FSM or not. Or you can confirm. Just you may click on this login logo. Okay, this here you can upload the logo also. They uploaded logo called as Vision. This is not the name they written. This is a logo. We can change the logo also. Okay, or else you can click on home to come back to this page and click on this username. Within this panel, once you click on the username or next to username you have arrow mark. Once you click on that, this panel would open. Within that panel you can find one task. This is all we call as a tasks. You can find one task called as setup and maintenance. If you find task called as setup and maintenance, that means you have access to FSM. Click on setup and maintenance task. This will take us to FSM. Okay, it will take us to FSM page. Already we discussed what is the purpose of FSM, right? The last session we discussed the purpose of FSM. There are a few more other points we have to understand, but in this stage what we have to understand, that's what we discussed. From FSM only you can enable the offerings and options. You can create implementation project. System creates task lists. We can assign whatever you want to assign to team members, and we can do the system configuration from FSM, and we can update the status, what are the work we are performing respective to system configuration, and we can track the same. As well as we discussed, we can copy the setups from the instance and you can move the same setups to another instance. Simply you can move the setups from one instance to another instance by using the configuration packages, the same configuration package you can create from FSM only. And we can run the reports also to know the progress of the project. Okay, that also possible. So this is FSM page. Okay, we'll focus on this more detail level, but very high level. If you this we call as this icon we call as task list or task pan, okay, or task panel. You can click on this task list because this consists of list of tasks. Simply you can call as task list. Click on this task list, it will list out all the tasks. You can click on manage implementation projects. You could see how many projects are created within this instance. Okay, by looking at these many projects, don't think one instance can be used for multiple clients. No. Okay, here you can create the projects. The projects what we are going to create for the same organization, but not for different clients. So Oracle is not going to give the access to use one instance for multiple clients. One instance for only one client. For the same client, if you want to create multiple projects, you can create. So what practice we follow when you create the projects and all, we'll see once we start working on this FSM part. Okay. So that's what we have to understand. You can create n number of projects, but when you deal with the client instance, you may create one project if you are going to do the implementation for one country. Maybe if you are doing the implementation for multiple countries, for each country you may create separate project. That we'll discuss within 5 to 10 minutes time. We are going to start working on FSM also. We'll talk on that. So just we are trying to understand whether whether the current user has access to FSM or not. We are verifying. Okay. Yes, the user has access. We are able to navigate to this page. That means the user has access to FSM. The same you can confirm by clicking on this username. If you are able to see setup and maintenance task within this panel, that means this user can connect to FSM. Within the FSM, this user can create the project. Okay, the user can create the configuration packages to move the settings from one instance to another instance. Done. And the other point here is we have to verify this user has access to employee related tasks. Okay, here we assign the employee role to this user. So that role should allow this user to access to employee related tasks, as well as it should allow us to run the reports. Fine. So to confirm that, you can click on navigator, expand me. So these are all related to employee. The current user is not an employee user. Even this task access, this user has no information this user can access. Okay, no information, the employee records are not there with this user. That is the reason this user cannot access anything. See, it's a blank person info, nothing, empty page. But if this user is converted as a employee user, or else by default this user is an employee user, the employee related records this user can access. The pay details for this user, which can be accessed by same user, self-service access, no pay details. The first point is this user is not at all employee user, implementation user. Okay, the learning, wellness, etc. Okay, the competition, time and to book the time sheets and to record the expense reports, right? So onboarding related, CV, profile information, etc., etc. These are all areas this user can have access with the help of the role called as employee, which we assign to this user. Apart from that, we discussed one more point. If we assign the role called as employee to any user, that user will be able to run the reports. It could be report or it can be some program, okay, which process the data. For that also we can go and verify. To verify that, go to navigator and go to tools. Okay, It's the tool section, right? Expand the tools. Under tools, you can see the task called as scheduled process. Okay, scheduled processes. So we are able to see the scheduled processes from this user since we assigned employee role to this user. You can click on schedule processes. It will take us to ESS job page. Already we discussed in the last session. Equal to ESS. In EBS we have SRS window. From SRS window you can submit any job, any report or program. In Fusion also, by navigating to this page. This page is equal to SRS window in EBS. This page we call as ESS job page. In EBS, SRS window we have. Okay, from SRS window you can submit any report or request. From here also you can submit any report or request or call it as program. But in EBS we are calling as request or request set. If you are going to submit one, we call as request. If you are going to submit multiple reports or multiple process at a time, those you can group into request set and you can do that. The same here, they named as job and job set. If you click on schedule new process, you can submit single job or multiple jobs with the help of job set. Before you go and submit job set, we have to create the job set. The few job sets Oracle also providing. The name they changed. Instead of calling as request, they are calling as job. We have a request set in EBS. The same here we are calling as job set. The name they changed. From here you can submit any report or program, anything. But everything we are calling a job. If you want to submit on report, yes, you can do that. Okay. So this user has access to, by default, all these. How come this user has access to all this? So what happens is, ideally, any report, any report or any process related jobs would be available from this page if those are part of the roles only. So that means whatever we are able to see in that LOV of that job submission window, those all are part of these three roles. Within these three roles, they given those. So we assign just role only to the user. In EBS, when you create responsibility, along with the menu, we associate request group also. Here there is no request group concept. Within the role, we will include privileges as well as this reports or programs also. So that means whatever you are able to see from this page here, these all we are able to access because these all are included in these roles. Okay, we'll see when we'll create custom roles also at the time. I'll take you through. And even when you copy the role, if you want to include some additional reports or if you want to remove the reports, which reports access by default the so and so role has, how to do that, we will do all those things. But just to understand, okay, the simple point is we didn't assign anything to this user related to reports or programs, but still we are able to see from this ESS job page. We could see all these jobs, but how come it is possible? Those all are available as a part of these three roles. That's how we have. So apart from this, any user can have access to certain jobs. How that is possible? When you create the job, you can enable the checkbox called as display from this schedule process page. In that case, within the instance, if you are going to create the new user also, that user also will be able to access to that job which you are creating. Say you are going to create one custom report you created. So when you create the report, at the time you have one checkbox called as, you'll create the report. Against the report you have to create the job. When you create the job, if you enable the checkbox called as, so display this job or allow this job to run from the scheduled process. Scheduled process means this page only. When you enable that, by default the job would be available for all the users. Otherwise, you have to assign that job to specific role. When you assign the role to that user, through role only the user can have access. But if you enable directly, it would be available for all the users. Okay, so you can think these list of jobs which you are able to see, few jobs you are able to see here because any one of these roles has access to those jobs, or else there may be few jobs which you are able to see here which are directly provisioned to access from this schedule process page. Okay, this is what you have to understand. Any questions on this point, please?
Can you explain the last point where you talked about job and job roles? I mean,
Yeah, what I'm saying is, now
that little
you
bit.
tell me, here we are able to see these jobs, right? How come you are able to see? What could be the reason?
Yeah, those are part of the implementation, employee, and
Rules.
security console job.
Now what I'm
Roles.
saying is, what I'm going to do is, I'll say we don't have this report, payables cash requirement report, as a part of any one of those roles. Okay, 3 roles we assigned to this user, but say I verified within those 3 roles we don't have this report included, but still we are able to see here. How we are able to see? So at this report level, the report whatever available in the instance, if you go and enable the checkbox called as allow this report to run from the scheduled process. If you enable, even if it is not included in any one of the role which is assigned to the user, that user can access it directly.
So if it is enabled for a scheduled process, that means that is available for
Yeah,
any user.
directly. Yeah, for any user, not only to this
For
user.
any.
Yeah.
Okay. So
For all,
irrespective of job role.
irrespective of job
Irrespective
role
of
and irrespective of, you don't need to think about the role in this case. Irrespective of user, you can see that.
okay. Mhm.
You won't get connected to role at all. Okay, by default, whatever the reports we have within the roles, those you can access from this page. But when you create the job, okay, that could be seeded job, or you may create the custom job against any new report definition or program. So if you enable the checkbox, allow to run from the scheduled process, it would be available directly from this LOV for all the users. If I go and create one more user also, from that user also I'll be able to access. That's it. Yeah, any
Now
other
I
questions? Yeah, please. Any questions?
Yeah, hello, Lakshman. I have a question. When you say job, is it the privileges you are talking about, or?
Sorry?
The concurrent program.
Yes, concurrent program in EBS.
Yeah, hi. When you okay,
Yeah, that we can treat as a privilege. Yes, a job. Okay, when we include this job could be report or some program into role, will treat that as a privilege. The user may have access privilege to run this report or some to perform certain action validation. This is also process. If you submit, system will validate the payable invoices. Okay, it's all our
Uh,
privilege. Yeah.
Lakshman, where do we programs in cloud?
Your voice
Concurrent
is
programs, like
breaking,
if you want
Vinod.
to have a custom.
Your voice is breaking.
If you want, is it audible now?
Yeah, now it's fine. Yeah.
So now we are seeing that list of values, right? Those are all the concurrent programs, right? And EBS normally.
Yeah, concurrent programs.
Normally we create in system administrator, right? Where do we create in cloud normally?
So they given the separate task. Okay, we no need to go to, because whatever we create here, yeah, here we didn't discuss one point, middleware concept we have. In the middleware we have one component. Within that component, okay, it's a ESS schedule process. ESS job we are calling enterprise scheduler service. So in the enterprise scheduler we create these kind of things, but it's a simply you can access as a job. Enterprise scheduler, okay, that is one of the service in the middleware. by using that, we can create these jobs.
Would you be covering in our sessions, coming sessions, right?
I'll be showing. So we'll create. I'll take you through how to write the SQL query. After writing the query, what are the data we are going to fetch? How to convert into report. So that means we'll create this simple custom report. If you want to allow that report to access, okay, if you want to allow any user to access that report, you have to create the job. I'll show you how to create the job against the report definition, how to associate, to sync that job through roles, etc. What are the other programs we have to run? I'll take you through that. Yeah, we'll be covering. Fine.
Lakshman,
James, please.
when you
James, please go ahead.
Yeah, when we talk about the job sale, is that you can have multiple jobs at the same time?
Yes, correct. In EBS request set you have, right, where you can group and you can sequence the same. Just they change the name. In EBS we call as request and request set. Here instead of request they name it as job, and in the place of request set they given the name as job set. That's it. No difference. Just names they change. Logic is same. Yeah, please. Any other questions?
Yeah, Lakshman. So you created a user, right? So it's gonna save it in F&D user table, or it's the tables are changed in Fusion?
No, F&D tables we have as it is. Yes, users and users and this kind of roles. This information will be stored in the F&D tables. I'll show you the complete information also. It's anyone can go and access that information. We have a Oracle OER. Okay, so with the source of that OER information, you can go through all the tables and reports and everything. Even you can access some technical reference related information also. So I'll take you through that. Yeah. So any other questions here, please? Fine. Done. So now we created a user. Okay. Now we created a user and we assign the roles and we are able to access whatever we expected to see. And sometimes if you create user, okay, if you create a user and if you assign the roles, you may not get access immediately to these areas. Okay, whatever you are able to access, you may not get access immediately. In that case, Oracle is recommending to run some job. 1 second. Okay, let me write in the spreadsheet only. So what Oracle recommends is, after creating user and after assigning the roles to that user, to see the impact immediately, we have to run the LDAP job, LDAP. Okay, we have to run the LDAP job. This is one of the program. We have to run this LDAP. What happens is, LDAP is one of the service in the middleware. We'll discuss maybe after two sessions. After one more session, we'll talk about Fusion architecture. When I talk about Fusion architecture, we'll talk about what is the middleware, what are the different components we have, what is the purpose we have, those components which are related to are functional. Those points we'll discuss so that you'll get more understanding about middleware. But for now, just to discuss, to understand the simple point, we don't need that introduction. So see, in Fusion what happens is, say you created a user, and once you create the user, that information should be updated in LDAP, and we assign the roles to that user. That information need to be updated in the LDAP. So now you have a user and roles which are assigned to the same user, and this information need to be updated in the LDAP. LDAP is directory services. LDAP, ideally we just LDAP we call as LDAP. Even use it as LDAP, don't call it as LDAP. So LDAP stands for L stands for lightweight, D stands for directory, A stands for access, P stands for protocol. Okay, lightweight directory access protocol. In Fusion application, say you given the user, you assign the user, you created user, you assign the roles. This information need to be updated in the LDAP. Say username, whatever the user you created is say XYZ. To that user you assign 5 roles. You assign 5 roles. Now this user is going to log into the instance. You created a user, yes, that user can log into the instance. When that user will log into the instance, what are the roles we assign to that user? The role related access this user may not get. The reason is when user try to log in, this login session will verify the user related privileges in the LDAP. This login is not going to connect to direct roles which are associated with the user. Even the roles are assigned to the user, what system will do is, system will verify the roles which are assigned to that user are updated in the LDAP or not, the directory services or not. As per LDAP, whatever the information we have, accordingly the user can have access to the relevant the pages or applications or anything else. So that is the reason what happens is, now the roles whatever we assign, okay, the roles whatever we assign, these are seeded roles. And one more point is, to these 3 roles we didn't assign anything. We didn't assign any primary ledger or business unit or inventory organizations or anything else. We didn't assign. So that is the reason the moment you assign the role to user, the 3 roles to user, immediately those are updated in the LDAP. Simply we call as those got synchronized. The role assignments are synchronized and updated in the LDAP services or LDAP directory services. So that is the reason when you log into the instance as XYZ user, you will be able to see the same privileges. But when we deal with this same concept, if the roles are related to specific applications, to these roles you have to assign your primary ledger or business unit. When you assign this business unit and primary ledger to these roles, when you complete this task, assigning these 5 roles and assigning the business unit to 5 roles, this information cannot be updated immediately in the LDAP. For that, what Oracle is recommending is submit LDAP job. Sometimes you may not assign. Now take the current example only. We created user. And we assign 3 roles. After creating user and after assigning these 3 roles, if you go and log into the instance, if you verify by clicking on the username, if you verify in this panel, you may not see setup and maintenance task. Or else, if you go to navigator, within the navigator, you may not find the section called as me. Or if you go to tools, under tools, you may not find the schedule process or security console. The reason, you assign the roles, but the roles are not synchronized with that user in the LDAP directory services. So sometimes it may take time to update whatever the assignments we are doing to the user. If you come across with that kind of experience, what Oracle recommends is run the job called as LDAP. Okay, run the job called as LDAP. Now ideally when you create this user, when you assign 3 roles, ideally system will synchronize automatically. Okay, synchronize automatically. But when you assign the business unit to AP related roles or AR related roles, when you assign the primary ledger to GL related roles, it won't sync immediately. It takes some time. In that case, so as per Oracle recommendation, we have to run the LDAP job. The simple point, remember, when you assign any roles to the user, submit LDAP job so that it would synchronize the assignments with the user. The same information it will try to update in the LDAP directory services immediately so that the user can log into the instance and can access the same, whatever assigned to the user. This is a point we have to understand. It's a recommendation from Oracle. You just assign, try to access. If you are able to access, okay, or else submit LDAP job. Okay, this is the point we have to understand. Now we'll go and submit the LDAP job. So if you want to submit the LDAP job also, you have to do from this this ESS job page. This page we call as ESS job page. How we can navigate to the same page? Again, I'm taking the navigation. We have to go to navigator. Within the navigator, you can find the section called as tools. Under tools, you have a task called as schedule processes. You have to click on schedule process so that we can land in ESS job page. You can click on schedule new process and search for LDAP. LDAP. Just tab out, or else you can click on this drop down option if you don't want to go with this approach. Click on drop down, click on search for LDAP. So this is job we have to submit. When you assign the new rules to any user, we have to submit this job. This is what Oracle is recommending. Even if you don't submit, automatically system will perform the synchronization, but sometimes that system automated synchronization may take some time. So that is the reason, as a user, when we assign the roles, we have to submit this process. If any delay from the system auto synchronization process, this job can complete that synchronization immediately. So select the job. Job name is retrieve latest LDAP changes. That means it would update. And see the description. So not only for this job, in the future applications, if you are going to submit anything, it could be report or any process, you can find the purpose. If you are going to run one report in the payables, what is the purpose of the report, you could see as a description. That's how we have. Okay, so what this job will do, it synchronize users, roles, and the role related grants within the LDAP. It will update which user, which roles are assigned. For which user, which roles are assigned, if those are going to be updated in the LDAP, then only that user can access to the same roles. Not just because you assign 5 roles to so and so user, the user cannot have access, same as EBS, right? So that's how we have. Say okay. And one more point. This LDAP job is runs at instance level. The job runs at instance level, not user specific job. Click on submit. Say okay. Click on refresh. The job runs at instance level. Say for example, I created a user and you also created one user. I assigned 5 roles to user, you assign 10 roles to your user. Now I'm going to submit the job. You don't need to submit because both are working on the same instance. Whatever the job you are submitting, you or me are going to submit, that is applicable for entire instance, all the users and roles whatever assigned. So now I submitted. At the same time, if you go and submit this job from your end, system will hold that job and it will wait till this job will complete, then only it will release that job and it will run. Till the time it would show that status as a blocked. Here status is showing as a running. Reason, within this instance, no other user is running the same job at the same time. Now nobody is running. I'm running this job, that is the reason it is running. Otherwise, the same time, if you go and run the same job in this instance, now you could see this job status as a blocked. When you see the job status as a block, this is what we have to understand. That means some other user also submitted same job, same time before you. That is still running. If that is the case, you could see the status as a blocked. Okay. So it runs at instance level. It runs at instance level. Yeah.
So Lakshman, is this applicable only for the jobs which run at instance level, that block, or for any program, it's only one time?
No.
At a point, no.
This job. I'm talking about only this job. Not other jobs and reports. Those you can run user specific base. Okay. Only this. And again, see other jobs based on what you are running, it will have parameters also, right? So that's how those are applicable. But I'm talking about only this job. This job will be applicable for entire to submit. for all the users.
But Lakshman, but can we see other people submitted jobs?
So by default, you cannot see, okay, by default, Oracle is not allowing with the standard functionality. By doing some workaround, you can do it. I'll just cover in our classes. You cannot see by default other user submitted jobs. It could be report or anything, you cannot see.
But in e-business, we used to see, right, through the system administrator?
No, not system administrator. When we are going to work on this specific application, okay, ideally the jobs which we submit from that responsibility, we can just see from that responsibility. System administrator is totally different. See, the business user won't use the system administrator, right? Okay, that is.
Okay.
Yep.
Lakshman, in ERP we have like incompatibility functionality. Do we have such functionality here also?
In ERP.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What you are referring as ERP?
I mean, program level we have, right, self incompatibility.
No, what exactly you are referring? Are you talking about EBS or R12 or something else?
EBS, yeah.
So tell me what you are referring.
In 11i we.
Yeah, what is that?
I mean, if we are submitting the same program.
Yeah.
Incompatibility.
Yeah, yes, that is there. Like in a few cases, yes, that happens. Okay, but here it's user specific. In here you don't see that. Okay, that for that they have a separate logic which is implemented. Here, even if you are submitting, it will run at a user specific base, and you will be able to execute that. You can do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is all about user creation roles and why we have to submit the LDAP job. LDAP jobs to do the synchronization of these roles and the users assignments. This is what we have to understand. Any questions on this user creation? That to implementation user. If you want to create employee user, you have to complete few setups. Then we can start with the employee user also. We'll see how to create the employee user from the scratch. How to convert implementation user as employee user also. These two scenarios we'll be testing. It takes some time. Okay, it takes some time. But reality, after submitting this job, you no need to wait till you see the status as succeeded. The final status would be succeeded. Ideally, when you submit the LDAP jobs, it may take 5 minutes, 10 minutes time also. But when you are practicing on instance, what you can do is you just come to this page, okay, and submit the job. You may wait for 1 minute, then you proceed with the next task. Whatever whatever we are thinking as the synchronization will happen and all, yes, that you can see. One way we are running this job through manual process, other side system will be running that synchronization automatically. There is internal job also which you cannot see from any screen. Okay, so that also system will take care of. With that system initiative or because of this job, what are the updates we are expecting to synchronize with that the user and the roles within the LDAP, that will happen. Okay, when you submit the job, you no need to wait to see the status has succeeded. For this job, the final status would be now it's running. Next status would be completed. After completed status, the final status would be succeeded. To see the status called as succeeded, it may take more time. Okay, more time. That is the reason you don't need to wait to see the status here. Submit this. You may wait for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 seconds or 20 seconds or max 1 minute to just to see the status here. Even if you don't see the status has succeeded, proceed with the next task. Whatever you are expected to see, if it is not happening, again we have to wait till you see the status has succeeded. That's it. Otherwise, not at all required to wait to see the status has succeeded here. That's it. So this is all about user creation. Any other questions on the same, please?
Lakshman, if that particular report is meant for a single operating unit, like single business unit, and if it is associated with the multiple business units for a same user, so that report will run for.
Sorry. See, generally, when you define the report, okay, we can keep that option open, right? So you may keep the parameter as one parameter as a business unit. Okay, you can keep as parameter, or else you can hard code that is for which business unit and all that definition also you can do, right? This is what we do.
Mock level. Yeah, yeah. But what about the multi-org MOC like concept actually?
Yes, we have MOAC.
See, within a single responsibility.
Please
Okay.
go ahead. Complete your question, please.
See, what I meant to say, if the respective responsibility has access to multiple business units, okay, then we can run that particular report for all the operating units or all the business units.
Correct.
Okay, rather than selecting this one.
One second. The user has access to which operating units? Yes, for those operating units, the user can run. Yes, correct.
Now, responsibility level, we are attaching the security profile, right?
Correct.
Through that security profile, we are attaching business unit a report actually. So, yes. Are we going to have a same concept?
Yeah, in EBS, yes, we are assigning, when you say MOSC, we create security profile, and security profile we assign to responsible by using MO security profile option, right? That's how we do in EBS. In Fission also, we are going to create the security profile. The security profile we are going to assign to role. We are going to assign role instead of responsibility. That's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So same concept will be available. Okay.
Yeah, possible. That's how we can do. We are going to we have that concept also in our course curriculum. We'll work on it. Yeah. Fine. Any other questions? I think it's already 9:35. So we're done for today. If you have any questions, you can stay back or else you can drop from the meeting. Okay. Thank you all. Have a good day and good night. Any questions from anyone, please?
So Lakshman, I got an email with a URL.
Yeah, I'll tell you that.
And there is a username and password.
Yeah. 1 second here. Let me talk about it. Who already subscribed this course? Okay, maybe yesterday or day before yesterday. For those, I shared previous batch videos as well as instance details. So temporarily you can use that instance for these 1 or 2 days. After 2 days, I'll be providing the separate instance for your batch. Okay. As of now, you can use that instance. Whatever we tried today, you can just do the same in that instance. And later, after 2 days, I'll be providing dedicated instance for your batch. For now, you can just go through those videos if you want to go through. I shared by default previous batch videos also. If you want to go through those videos, you can go through, or else you can expect to receive the videos from this batch. Anyway, even you received previous batch videos, I'll keep sharing this current batch videos also. Maybe from tomorrow onwards, I'll be sharing the videos through Google Drive. I'll keep all these videos in the Google Drive. To subscribe this course, I'll start sharing the videos through Drive, and you can download these videos also into your system. Yeah. Any other questions, please?
And the videos are not. I couldn't download. It says permission issue. If you can check.
Yeah, sure. I'll check it
later. That should be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions from anyone, please? So, any questions from anyone, please? Okay, since no questions, then that's all for today. We'll connect tomorrow same time, and we'll see how to create implementation project, and we'll discuss relevant points which we should understand before we start with actual configuration. Okay, thank you all. Have a good day and good night. See you tomorrow.